the wrongs of this country and getting a direction, we do not see something clear-cut that the APC has promised. For instance, devolution of powers. Do you see that happening with the APC?
Those are not the issues, my dear brother. If the people of Nigeria want devolution of power, let them agree on it in a constitutional convention. If they want agriculture to be a local affair, let them agree in a constitution. If they want interstate roads to be controlled by the federal government, let them agree on it. If they want education to belong to the state, let them agree on it. Not that one government will write a constitution and say we the people give a constitution to ourselves when we didn't. It is a lie. How can a constitution begin with false representation? This is the problem.
Dr. Abayomi, let me ask you, I mean, since we'll come back to this hopefully, you talked about procedure, which validates the entire thing.
Yes.
Does it matter to you that the president made this broadcast before writing a letter to the National Assembly about his return?
Yes, it matters. The proper thing is for him to write a letter because he's not yet a president for the purposes of his commission. He is, the proper thing for the president is first of all to write. He cannot assume his office until he has communicated to the National Assembly that he's back in office.
Does that then, to some extent or to a large extent, invalidate, when you say that you think that that speech was presidential?
Well, from practical standpoint, yes. From constitutional standpoint,
even though the procedure was not right.
Yes. From practical standpoint, yeah, but from constitutional standpoint, it's just like the president Olusegun Obasanjo. He declared a state of emergency in Jos. I listened to that broadcast at 10 o'clock the very day. I called the president. I said, Mr. President, you can't declare a state of emergency with due respect. It is wrong. It was already declared. He said, so what do I mean? So I required to
does that then validate this that you say was not procedurally right, citing the Obasanjo case?
Well, the point is that a president can make an error. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you admit this is an error?
Yes, constitutional error. He is supposed to, first of all, communicate to the National Assembly, and the National Assembly should accept that communication before he assumes his office. In delivering the speech to the Nigerian people, he is already putting himself out as having assumed office. Procedurally, I think it is inappropriate.
Do you then subscribe to those who think that, look, the president is a fine military person before now, and he's attained the highest of the office, he understands procedure, he knows how some of those things should be done. So when people then say that it appears that there's a group of people that may have compelled him, influenced him to make that statement, do they have a point when they say that?
No. The problem we have in this country is that, first of all, the government apparatus does not work well. I'm giving you the example of Obasanjo.
It doesn't work well.
Yes, government apparatus does not work well in this country. And many times, people and presidents are intimidated. For example, I give you the just example. The president declared a state of, by the powers conferred on him, I hereby declare a state of emergency. The president at that time had constitutional advisor. He had attorney general. He had lots of lawyers in his cabinet. And yet he made a constitutional error. I called him at 10 o'clock. I said, you can't do that, sir. You have no such power. The power that you have is to issue a proclamation, which you sent to the National Assembly. Having voted on it and accepted it by 2/3, you can now issue a declaration. But he had already done it, so he now said, so what do we do? I said, well, you have to change the whole process. So he did. But think for a moment, one single ordinary man, the only reason I was able to do that is because I had some influence on him. And the only reason he was able to change is because he respected the voice that told him something. So if, for example, the president Obasanjo is an entirely intelligent man, highly cerebral, and yet he's making a mistake that ordinarily shouldn't have been made.
In other words, you don't think that we're learning from our past mistakes for this procedural error to have been done again?
Well, in terms of government, you see, it is the people around the government that must be strong enough to advise the president on issues.
But what about those who say the president is as good as the advice it takes?
Yeah, but first of all, give the advice first. Now, if you give the advice and he's not accepting it, then you leave.
This is indicative to the president's advisors, would you say?
Yes, I think it is. They should have advice. President, we're now talking of a constitutional issue. Naturally, president will be emotional. He's left his country all this time. He knows that people want to hear his voice. But to hear his voice must follow constitutional process. Like I said, he has only one job, to execute the law and the constitution.
But there seems to be a pattern. Because, I mean, there are those who will just quickly remind us that, look, remember the most recent one, when the president wrote that letter to the National Assembly before he left, where there was that argument to the National Assembly, in the Senate, where they said, it doesn't matter if you use the word coordinate the country, they understood what it meant. And then there was that part where